Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's world turned upside down when her question to Supreme Court nominee Judge William Morrison during the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing sent shockwaves through the entire political establishment. What had begun as a routine confirmation hearing transformed into America's most talked-about political confrontation the moment AOC posed her unexpected question. The morning of September 15th started like any other confirmation hearing in the historic Hart Senate office building. The ornate committee room, with its towering marble columns and rich mahogany panels, buzzed with the familiar energy of Washington politics. Senators filed into their leather chairs behind the curved dais, their staff members arranging briefing books and water glasses with practiced precision. Camera crews from major networks adjusted their equipment, preparing to broadcast what everyone expected to be another predictable day of political theater. Judge William Morrison sat composed at the witness table, his silver hair impeccably styled, his navy suit pressed to perfection. At 58, he embodied the traditional image of judicial authority, calm, measured, and seemingly unflappable. His confirmation appeared all but certain, with Republican senators praising his extensive legal background and conservative judicial philosophy. Morrison had spent 20 years on the federal appeals court, earning a reputation for strict constitutional interpretation and unwavering adherence to legal precedent. The Democratic senators had prepared their usual lines of questioning about judicial independence, reproductive rights, and health care access. Their staff had conducted opposition research, but nothing seemed likely to derail Morrison's nomination. He had navigated similar hearings before, always maintaining his composure while deflecting controversial questions with carefully crafted non-answers. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez entered the committee room differently than her colleagues. While other senators carried thick briefing books and surrounded themselves with advisors, she walked in with a single manila folder and a look of quiet determination. Her burgundy blazer stood out among the sea of navy suits, and her purposeful stride caught the attention of reporters who had learned to watch for her unexpected moments. AOC had spent weeks preparing for this hearing, but not in the way her colleagues expected. While others focused on Morrison's judicial opinions and legal writings, she had been investigating something else entirely: his financial connections and potential conflicts of interest that hadn't been fully explored during the vetting process. Committee Chairman Senator Richard Durbin called the hearing to order at 9:30 a.m. sharp. His opening remarks emphasized the importance of judicial independence and the need for thorough examination of nominees. Ranking Republican member Senator Lindsey Graham followed with his own statement praising Morrison's qualifications and urging swift confirmation. The questioning began predictably. Senator Dianne Feinstein asked about Morrison's views on precedent and constitutional interpretation. He responded with practiced precision, emphasizing his commitment to judicial restraint and respect for established law. Senator Chuck Grassley inquired about his approach to criminal justice reform, receiving similarly polished answers about fairness and equal treatment under the law. As the morning progressed, Morrison handled each question with the skill of a seasoned jurist. He deflected attempts to pin him down on specific issues like abortion rights and gun control, citing the need to avoid prejudging cases that might come before the court. His performance was textbook perfect, revealing nothing while appearing cooperative and knowledgeable. During the lunch recess, AOC retreated to her office where she made final preparations for her questioning period. Her staff had compiled additional research overnight, uncovering financial documents that painted a troubling picture of Morrison's investments and potential conflicts. The information was explosive, but AOC knew she would have only one chance to present it effectively. When the hearing resumed at 2 p.m., the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows cast long shadows across the committee room. Television ratings had spiked during lunch as word spread about potential fireworks during AOC's questioning slot. Social media buzzed with speculation about what the freshman congresswoman might ask the seasoned judge. Senator Amy Klobuchar questioned Morrison about voting rights and election security, receiving his standard responses about following the law regardless of political considerations. Senator Cory Booker pressed him on criminal justice issues, but Morrison remained unflappable, sticking to his prepared talking points about fairness and constitutional principles. Then came AOC's turn. The room seemed to hold its breath as she adjusted her microphone and opened her manila folder. The cameras zoomed in on her face, capturing the intensity in her dark eyes as she prepared to speak. Morrison sat forward slightly, perhaps sensing that this would be different from the previous questioning. "Judge Morrison," AOC began, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the hushed atmosphere of the committee room. "Thank you for being here today. I want to start by acknowledging your distinguished career and extensive legal experience." Morrison nodded politely, his expression revealing nothing as he waited for her first question. The pleasantries felt like the calm before a storm, and experienced Washington observers recognized the careful setup AOC was constructing. "Judge Morrison, I'd like to discuss your financial disclosures," AOC continued, her tone remaining conversational but gaining an edge that made reporters lean forward in their seats. "According to documents filed with the Office of Government Ethics, you've maintained significant investments in several corporations that frequently appear before federal courts." Morrison's expression remained neutral, but a slight tightening around his eyes suggested he hadn't expected this line of questioning. "Congresswoman, I've fully complied with all financial disclosure requirements and have committed to recusing myself from any cases involving companies in which I hold investments." AOC nodded as if acknowledging his response, but her next words changed everything. "That's interesting, Judge Morrison, because our investigation has revealed investments you failed to disclose, specifically your ownership of shell companies that hold substantial stakes in Meridian Industries, a corporation currently involved in litigation regarding environmental regulations." The room erupted in whispers and shuffling papers. Morrison's face flushed slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. Republican senators exchanged alarmed glances while Democratic members leaned forward with renewed interest. The revelation had caught everyone off guard, including Morrison's handlers who scrambled to review their own files. "Congresswoman, I believe there may be some confusion about my financial holdings," Morrison replied, his voice less steady than before. "All of my investments have been properly disclosed and reviewed by the appropriate authorities." AOC opened her folder and pulled out a stack of documents, holding them up for the cameras to see. "Judge Morrison, I'm holding copies of incorporation papers for 3 shell companies registered in Delaware: Riverside Holdings, LLC, Mountain View Investments, LLC, and Coastal Properties, LLC. These companies were established between 2019 and 2021, and according to corporate filings, you serve as the managing member of all 3. The silence in the room was deafening. Morrison's lawyer leaned forward to whisper in his ear, but the judge waved him away, his composure beginning to crack under the weight of AOC's methodical presentation. "These shell companies," AOC continued, her voice gaining strength as she sensed Morrison's vulnerability, "collectively own approximately $2.3 million worth of stock in Meridian Industries, a company currently defending against EPA regulations in multiple federal courts. Cases that could very well reach the Supreme Court during your tenure if confirmed." Republican senators began interrupting, calling for points of order and requesting time to review the documents AOC was presenting. But she pressed forward, knowing this might be her only opportunity to expose what she had discovered. "Judge Morrison, Meridian Industries has been fighting environmental regulations worth billions of dollars to the fossil fuel industry. Your undisclosed financial interest in this company creates a clear conflict of interest that calls into question your ability to fairly adjudicate environmental law cases." Morrison's face had gone pale, his hands gripping the edge of the witness table. "Congresswoman, these investments were managed by financial advisors. I wasn't aware of the specific holdings within these investment vehicles." AOC's eyes flashed with controlled anger. "Judge Morrison, you're asking us to believe that you, a federal judge with decades of experience in legal and financial matters, were unaware of owning shell companies worth millions of dollars? Companies you personally signed incorporation papers for?" The accusation hung in the air like a thunderbolt. Morrison's carefully constructed image of judicial integrity was crumbling before millions of viewers. His mouth opened and closed several times as he struggled to formulate a response that might salvage his nomination. The investment strategy was complex," Morrison stammered, his voice barely audible through the microphone. My financial advisor assured me that all disclosure requirements were being met. AOC leaned forward, her voice cutting through Morrison's weak explanation. Judge Morrison, these documents show you personally signed incorporation papers, personally authorized investment decisions, and personally received quarterly reports detailing these holdings. How do you reconcile that with your claim of ignorance? The committee room buzzed with urgent whispers as senators and staff processed the implications of AOC's revelations. Republican senators huddled with their staff, trying to determine how to respond to allegations they hadn't seen coming. Democratic senators watched with a mixture of shock and admiration as their youngest colleague systematically dismantled a Supreme Court nominee. Morrison's lawyer finally intervened, leaning into his client's microphone. The witness requests a brief recess to review these documents and prepare an appropriate response. But AOC wasn't finished. Judge Morrison, before any recess, I have one final question. Given these undisclosed conflicts of interest, do you believe the American people can trust you to fairly interpret environmental law from the Supreme Court bench? The question struck like a final blow. Morrison sat silent for nearly 30 seconds, his face ashen, as cameras captured every moment of his internal struggle. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Congresswoman, I believe my record speaks for itself. I have always strived to uphold the highest ethical standards. AOC's response was swift and decisive. Judge Morrison, your record is exactly what concerns me. The American people deserve Supreme Court justices who are transparent about their financial interests, not ones who hide behind shell companies and claim ignorance when caught. Chairman Durbin, recognizing the explosive nature of the testimony, called for an immediate recess. As senators filed out of the room, the political world was already reacting to what many were calling the most devastating questioning of a Supreme Court nominee in decades. Within hours, news networks were running continuous coverage of AOC's confrontation with Morrison. Legal experts debated the implications of the alleged undisclosed investments, while political commentators analyzed the broader impact on the confirmation process. Social media exploded with reactions, ranging from praise for AOC's investigative work to criticism of what some called an ambush attack. Morrison's nomination, which had seemed certain that morning, now hung in the balance. Republican senators found themselves in an impossible position, forced to defend a nominee whose credibility had been severely damaged. Several moderate Republicans privately expressed concerns about moving forward with the confirmation. The White House, which had invested significant political capital in Morrison's nomination, scrambled to respond to the crisis. Press secretary statements emphasized Morrison's qualifications while promising a thorough review of the financial disclosure issues raised by Congresswoman Ocasio Cortez. Over the following days, additional revelations emerged about Morrison's financial arrangements. Investigative reporters, energized by AOC's initial discoveries, uncovered a pattern of questionable investments and potential conflicts that extended beyond the Meridian Industries holdings. The judge's explanation that he was unaware of his own financial interests became increasingly untenable as more evidence surfaced. Morrison's supporters argued that the attacks were politically motivated, designed to torpedo a qualified conservative nominee. They pointed to his judicial record and legal expertise, arguing that complex financial arrangements shouldn't disqualify him from serving on the court. But the damage was severe and apparently irreversible. Public opinion polls showed declining support for Morrison's confirmation, with even some Republican voters expressing concerns about his financial transparency. Editorial boards that had initially supported his nomination began calling for either complete financial disclosure or withdrawal from consideration. AOC's role in exposing Morrison's conflicts made her a central figure in the confirmation battle. Progressive activists praised her thorough investigation and fearless questioning, seeing it as proof that aggressive oversight could hold powerful nominees accountable. Conservative critics accused her of conducting a political hit job designed to block any conservative nominee regardless of qualifications. The confrontation also elevated AOC's profile within the Democratic Party. Senior senators who had initially viewed her as too inexperienced for serious committee work began recognizing her preparation and effectiveness. Her ability to uncover information that had escaped the attention of more experienced senators impressed even her critics. Morrison's legal team worked frantically to address the financial disclosure issues, filing amended reports and attempting to explain the complex investment arrangements. But each new revelation seemed to contradict previous explanations, creating an impression of deception that proved impossible to overcome. 3 weeks after AOC's questioning, Morrison announced his withdrawal from consideration for the Supreme Court. In a brief statement, he cited the need to avoid further politicizing the confirmation process while maintaining that all his investments had been legal and properly managed. The withdrawal represented a significant victory for Democrats and a major embarrassment for the administration. AOC's methodical investigation and strategic questioning had accomplished what seemed impossible just months earlier, derailing a Supreme Court nomination through pure investigative work and effective communication. The Morrison confirmation battle became a case study in modern political combat, demonstrating how thorough preparation and strategic questioning could overcome institutional advantages. AOC's performance established her as a formidable force in Washington, capable of taking on the most powerful figures in American politics. For AOC, the success validated her approach to politics, combining progressive ideology with serious policy work and strategic thinking. Her questioning of Morrison showed that freshman members could make significant impacts through careful preparation and willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. The aftermath also highlighted the importance of financial transparency in judicial nominations. Morrison's withdrawal led to calls for stricter disclosure requirements and more thorough vetting processes for future Supreme Court nominees. As the political world processed the implications of Morrison's withdrawal, one thing was clear. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had demonstrated that thorough investigation and effective questioning could hold even the most powerful nominees accountable. Her confrontation with Morrison would be remembered as a defining moment in her political career and a reminder that in American democracy, no one is beyond scrutiny. The empty Supreme Court seat remained unfilled as the administration searched for a new nominee, one whose financial arrangements could withstand the kind of scrutiny that AOC had brought to bear on Morrison. The young Congresswoman from the Bronx had shown that preparation, persistence, and courage could triumph over experience and institutional power. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. God bless you, and God bless America.